So as I said before, my name is Josh. So glad you can be in the room with us. And for those who are online as well, great that you can be here without being in the room, but it's great that you're being able to be plugged in that way. We are in week 3 of our series, Church 101, where we're spending 4 weeks unpacking the church. What is the church and who is the church for? So to get you up to speed with where we have tracked so far and where we are heading, this is what we've covered on the road so far. So we started by exploring the history of the church. We looked at this idea of, well, how did the church start? How did it gain influence? And how the meaning of the church got transitioned from being about the people that were gathering to being about the building and the institutions that the people met in. So that was week number 1. Then last week we addressed how the church helps us with formation. That the church is full of broken and hurt people who are being formed by our following of Jesus. Today we're looking at one another, about how we care for one another. And then next week we're going to finish off by looking at the fact that the church exists for those who are not yet a part of it, and why that is such good news for you and for me. Before we get into this morning, I just want to give a quick pastoral warning because what we're going to look at today, whenever I deliver these types of messages, I just got to give a heads up because someone's going to always come up to me afterwards and say, it's a good message, but what about people in this particular situation? So let me give you the warning up front. So today, I'm going to be talking about how we treat one another. And I want to say up front that there are certain situations and certain circumstances where love does require that we do not reconcile completely with people. There are situations where forgiveness and letting go doesn't mean that you and the other person end up in ongoing contact. So when I refer to stuff today, if you're in a situation with someone, with somebody else where this is sort of a tension for you to manage, I want to say exercise your best judgment. And do not hear me saying put yourself into dangerous relationships and situations because that's what God wants. Because too much damage has been done by church people putting vulnerable people into volatile situations in Jesus' name. So we don't want to do that, okay? So if you're in one of those situations, when I talk about forgiveness and moving towards people and reconciliation, I do recognize that there are certain pastoral situations and life circumstances where that is not the safest or the best or the wisest or the most God-honoring thing to do. So that's my warning up front. Use your best judgment, and then as it flows out, it should be fine. So let's get into it. How you and I treat people, the people around you, not just your family members, but the people you interact with through your work life, at the shops, people that are serving you at cafes, how we treat people matters. And when it comes to Jesus, what you find is that this may be one of the biggest indicators of how we treat people, maybe one of the biggest indicators for where our heart truly is in our relationship with God. I know this is a fact because of the time where Jesus equates how we treat others as the litmus test for our following and our love of God. In one of Jesus' most famous teachings, Jesus summarizes all of what it means to follow God in a simple phrase where he says, if you want to summarize everything, it comes down to this: love God, love others. Love God, love others. Now, the loving God part, that's a little hard to measure, isn't it? Because no one can see you and your personal relationship to God. No one sees if you pray or how much you pray, if you spend time in silence or how much time you spend reading the Bible. No one can see that or judge that, right? That one is hard to, see what spiritual practices people are doing. The loving other people, however, is very hard to ignore because that's everything we see. Everyone sees the type of person we are by the way that we treat other people. People observe how we talk to our friends, how we treat our parents and our kids, how we follow through on commitments with work colleagues, how patient are we when the person serving us the coffee at the cafe gets it wrong, right? And we've just got to sit there and go, all right, don't worry, there's someone. People see all of that, how we treat other people. So it's not just loving God, you and God, and everything's okay, as we'll have a look at. It also matters how we treat the people around us. Jesus also gave a lot of other examples as to how it matters the fact that we treat people. So here's a couple of them up there on the screen. Matthew chapter 5, Jesus basically says, hey, if you want to show God appreciation for how good he's been to you and offer up something to him. If you have an issue that is unresolved with someone, you need to stop trying to offer that up to God, go and resolve that issue, then come back to God and offer it up. Very interesting passage. Matthew 6, this is a really fascinating one. God even goes so far as to say, if you don't forgive other people, God won't forgive you. Oof, it's a bit harsh, but it's what Jesus says. If you're unable to forgive people, then your God, your Father in heaven won't forgive us. Go and read it for yourself. John 13. Jesus says that we are to love other people the way that he has loved us. And this is interesting because what it means is that if you put your hand up and say, I'm a follower of Jesus, it means that your actions towards other people are a direct reflection of what you truly believe in terms of how God sees you. Because if you love others as God has loved you, how you choose to treat other people is a direct reflection of how you believe God sees you. Matthew 25, how we treat people is equal to how we treat Jesus. This is probably, for me, go and read Matthew 25 for yourself, one of my favorite passages in all of the Gospels. And I can't go too in depth with it right now because it's not the point of today's message. So go read it for yourself. But basically, Jesus says very clearly, there are consequences in the next life depending on how you treat people in this life. It's definitely worth a read. So, we see Jesus tie our treatment and how we are postured towards other people as closely showing how we actually honor God and how we follow him. One of the most powerful tools of evil over the generations that appears every now and then is this idea that, okay, so Jesus says all that stuff about, okay, how we treat people and everything, but at the end of the day, as long as me and God are okay, that's fine. So what happens over time again and again, this idea that you can be okay with God and not be okay with the people that God made and loves, occasionally that sort of comes up and people think to ourselves, well, as long as I'm reading my Bible, as long as I'm spiritual, as long as me and God are okay, it doesn't matter how my relationships are with other people. People seem to form this belief that you can follow Jesus personally and not care about how you treat the people around you. But Jesus says, no, it does not work that way. You and God cannot be okay if you and his children are not okay. The measure of your following of Jesus is directly tied to how you treat the people around you. So here is how the relationship between loving God and loving others, the way that Jesus says is a summary of all of the following of him. This is how it works in practice. It's on the screen behind me. Love for God is something which shapes how we treat other people, right? It's the internal working of our hearts, the internal change of motivation. It's the internal changing of our lives in a new direction. One of the coolest things, if you go from not following Jesus to following Jesus, is realizing, wow, God is real. And he is doing something in my heart that I want to start to move in a more other-focused direction. So our love for God, and as we work with him, as we talk to him, as we spend time with him, he changes the direction and the motivations and the posture of our heart. That is the love for God. That's what happens. That's the engine room right there. But love for others, that demonstrates our love for God. How we treat other people demonstrates how much we are truly following Jesus. This is why if you don't follow Jesus and you get mistreated by someone who says they follow Jesus, I'm so sorry. We're all in process. We're all part of trying to be developed and everything, and we don't always get this right. And if you're someone who follows Jesus and you can think back to times when you have mistreated other people, it's hard, isn't it? We all get it wrong. We all mess up. But if we find that our behavior is constantly hurting other people, and we still say that we love Jesus, the question is, do we really? Or do we just like how Jesus makes us feel? Because if it doesn't change in our attitude towards other people, then I don't think we're actually following him properly. So, the best way to sort of flesh this out a little bit more is to look at this idea of loving God is between you and God. This is like a vertical version of faith, right? And then you got your horizontal, you to other people. So I'm going to give you some examples of where people have a strong connection to God, but maybe not a strong connection with the people around them. And what happens when people have a strong connection with the people around them, but they haven't cultivated a strong connection to God. So this idea of vertical versus horizontal faith. Vertical, how we are to God. Horizontal, how we are to other people. So if you are someone who's maybe these are some examples you may have experienced before. So maybe your vertical to God is good. Man, you and God, you wake up in the morning, 30 minutes of quiet time, you go on, you read the Bible, and you've got so many notes in there, and you're always praying, listening to Christian music, and what's the Christian station again? Sunshine. I don't listen to Sunshine, but you listen to Sunshine, you're getting inspired, words of the day, all that stuff. That's going well, but maybe your attitude and your relationship with other people isn't doing so well. Sometimes this is how it can manifest at times. Maybe you're leading worship on a Sunday, but then you're snapping at your spouse in the car park. Oof. That's happened before, sorry. Yeah, might have. Led worship, and then I thought she was wrong, but I was wrong. I'm always wrong, right, men? Yeah, anyway. Maybe you're hosting a Bible study, but you're ignoring your teenager's need for a meaningful relationship. Maybe you're posting on socials about grace and love, but you're holding grudges, and it's just eating you up inside. Maybe you're praying for unity in the church. Oh, the church should be stronger, and you're praying for that, but then when you're out for a coffee with your mates, you speak critically about church leaders without going to them. Or maybe you volunteer in Kids Min, which is great. Oh, you get to look after the next generation, but then you're impatient and you're not giving your kids what they need. You've got this strong connection. Me and God are okay, but then how it plays out is not as healthy. And that's some examples in the ministry context in terms of when you're serving or doing things in partnership with God. But there's also when the vertical is strong but the horizontal is weak personally. And these are a little closer to home sometimes. Sometimes some of us are praying for God to change others because we know what's right for them. They should know what's right for them, but it's not happening. God, I pray for change for that person. But we're not praying for God to change us. We're not asking the question, is there something in my heart that needs to transition? Maybe you're waiting for revival in the nation, but your own attitude needs a bit of a makeover. Maybe you're calling out cultural sin and you're getting really loud about a lot of stuff going on out there, but you excuse your own pride and your own sense of gossip and those sort of things. Maybe you think to yourself, oh, I'm very spiritually mature, but then you get offended really easily and you feel the need to have to defend yourself. Just a pro tip, if your faith is really strong, a lot of the times people can say things to you and it doesn't matter. Jesus, all the time they're talking to him and he's just asking questions and going with the flow. You find that people who are really reactive generally are very insecure. Anyway, and then this one's an interesting one. Sometimes there's this thing of, I desire deeper teaching, give me deeper teaching. But we resist deeper obedience and actually putting it into practice. So that's when the horizontal is strong, but the vertical, the horizontal is weak, the vertical is strong. Now, the inverse, that may not be you. You may be thinking to yourself, Josh, that's not my gig. I got you. The flip side is how it can also play out. Maybe the vertical, you to God, is feeling a little weak, but your horizontal is strong. So what this can look like is things like this. You are serving tirelessly, but you're never sitting still with God. Or perhaps you're known as that really helpful person. Oh, just call them up. They're helpful. Call them. They'll help you out. But inside you're feeling spiritually dry. Or maybe you're doing ministry for Jesus, but you're not actually feeling like you're participating in ministry with Jesus. Maybe you care deeply about people's needs, but you're not actually praying for them. Or you avoid prayer because you think to yourself, there's more productive things that I've got to do. So how do we remedy this? How do we take these tensions of strong vertical, weak horizontal, or strong horizontal and weak vertical? What is the remedy for these types of things that we fall into? Because as we saw before from the examples from Jesus' own words, there are so many times he says, hey, loving God and loving people, same sides, different sides of the same coin. You cannot separate them. So how do we hold them together so that we have a fulfilling following of Jesus? Now, before I tell you how and the remedy to the situation, I just want to explain to you why I think it matters that you should care about this. So I think you should be able to hold your vertical and your horizontal tensions. I think you should need to hold both of them together, because your life, both on this world right now and with the view to eternity, they are shaped by how you manage this tension. It is shaped by how you manage this tension. I believe that your work life, I believe that your friendships, I believe that your marriages, I believe that your parenting journeys, all of them are way too important to get these sort of things wrong and out of whack. Because we all want a healthy workplace, we all want healthy friendships, we all want fulfilling marriages and thriving marriages, we want relationships. Yeah, you want to have a relationship with your kids when they're adults, right? And then you want to have healthy relationships with them. So you don't want to get this wrong. Because if you say you follow Jesus and you mistreat the people around you, things go out of whack. And you know what happens when you're someone who says, me and God are good, but how you treat other people is not so good? Do you know what happens there? Key relationships in your life will buckle under the pressure of trying to live with a self-righteous prick, and eventually you're going to be found out as a fraud. Do you know why? Because life will break. And if you're all me and God and not me and others, when life breaks you down, everyone's going to look at you and say, see, not even you believed it. See, you thought you were all this. You were a self-righteous person. And your key relationships, your children, your spouse, your friends, your workplace are going to look at you when things crumble and say, knew it was going to happen. If you think you and God can be okay, but you're awful to the people around you, or you don't live well with the people around you, eventually it will fall over and everyone will see it was just a veneer of self-righteousness, pride, and fear. That is the end result of that. If that tension is out of whack, that's where you end up. But if you say you follow Jesus and you don't cultivate a relationship with him, you think to yourself, I'm really good with everyone out here, but me and God have not done the journey together. Do you know where you end up? You don't end up as the self-righteous person who hurts a lot of people. The place you end up is burnout. Again and again and again. There is no alternative. You will burn out. Because if you give from a space where you don't possess it, the only result at the end is going to be a hollow you. And I believe that your workmates, your friends, your spouse and your children, they deserve a healthy and whole you. Not someone who's going to cause a bunch of relational issues and not someone who's going to burn out in the process. They need a healthy you. They deserve a healthy you, and you deserve to be a healthy you. So I believe holding the horizontal and vertical faith components in tension allows us to become faithful followers of Jesus and for you to be fully available to your loved ones and to become a neighbor that everybody wants to be around. So how do we become that type of person? So here's the remedy. If the tension within us is between us and God and us and the people around us and everything, we need to merge those two spaces. And the way that we do that is by calling out behavior that seeks to drive them apart and cultivating rhythms that drive them together. You need to call out behavior that pushes them apart. When you see someone on a Sunday act all holier than thou, and then you see them in the car park at Woolies and they're yelling at someone, hey, what? This doesn't match. It's not going to work. Or maybe you can catch yourself, you're waiting for your coffee and they're a little late and you start getting angry at them even though they're doing the best that they can. Hey, maybe just chill. Maybe there's some hard work to go on there. Maybe you're in the workplace and someone starts gossiping and you hear that gossip and you have a decision to make. Do I participate or do I shut it down? And sometimes we think to ourselves, I had a great time of prayer this morning, but this is really good gossip. And I just can't wait to send that sucker down the line. Hey. You're driving apart those two worlds. And Jesus says you cannot faithfully follow me, Jesus says, and push those apart. He does not give us any wriggle room. Go and read the Gospels again. Look at what Jesus actually says, and you see that loving people, loving God, they belong together. And when we push them apart, it only ever ends badly. So, call out behavior that drives them apart for your own sake, for your kids' sake, for your friends' sake. And then the second thing is cultivate habits and rhythms that pull them together. And today, I've given you a little card, or I'll give you a card. So out there on the thing as you leave, I'll go out there and hand them out as well, is this little card here that has a little prayer. And this is what I want to challenge you for this week, all right? This is the challenge for the week. All right, I challenge you Prove me that, I reckon you can't even do it. Prove me wrong, What's your motivation? Are you like carrot or stick people? If you're the carrot person, imagine how good you're going to feel at the end. If you're the stick person, you can't do it. Prove me wrong. Anyway, 5 days. 5, not 10. I'll go 10 if you want it, but 5 days. Next 5 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I challenge you, before you leave your bed, to just take 2 seconds to say one prayer. For the next 5 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I challenge you to say one prayer that is a habit that will bring together the vertical and the horizontal. And it's this prayer that's on the screen, and I'd love to get this card in your hand afterwards. This is all you need to say. Jesus, let me see as you see and love as you love. That's it. Take you 2 seconds to do. If you feel a bit weird saying it out loud, you can say it in your head. If you feel comfortable saying it out loud, say it out loud. But it's just you and God. Just say, Jesus, just help me to see the world the way that you see the world. And help me to love the people around me as you love the people around me. This simple prayer, this small step, brings together the vertical and the horizontal so that you and I become people who love God and love others just as Christ designed us to live. And when we do that, life is freed up. We can breathe. We are whole. We're not compartmentalized. And we can see God work in our hearts. So let me pray for you, and then we're going to finish our time together. Would you close your eyes? Jesus, help us to see as you see and to love as you love each and every day. Amen.